Hey everyone, Mitch coming in for the Commander Core Studio. Welcome to the show. So today's episode comes to you courtesy of one of my amazing patrons, Daryl, who's been supporting this channel as a general tier patron. I truly couldn't do this without the support from amazing patrons like Daryl, so again, Daryl, thank you so much. And for the personalized deck tech, Daryl chose a crazy cool and powerful commander with Memnarch. Here we go. So Memnarch is a 4/5 legendary artifact creature wizard for 7 mana. Pay 1 blue. Target permanent becomes an artifact in addition to its other types. And most importantly, pay 3 and a blue. Gain control of target artifacts. So, thieving shenanigans ensue. With this commander, we can say, that really good thing over there. Now you're an artifact. Your opponent's like, oh, why'd you do that? And you're like, now I get control of it. Oh, that's why you did that. This is a commander that can be absolutely, brutally effective, taking, well, all of your opponent's artifacts quite easily, and all of their things quite easily when you turn them into artifacts with this way or another. We'll talk about here in a little bit, but yeah, there's a lot of exciting and powerful things that you can do with this one, win with your opponent's things, and even on a budget. Yeah, this commander itself is $7.37. That being said, the rest of the deck, every single card in it, is much more budget friendly. So the total cost going to Moxfield is $25.90 for this entire deck. Keep in mind that doesn't include basics or the cost of shipping. That being said, still incredibly budget friendly. If you are interested in this build, make sure you check out that card list link in the description below. With all that said, let's jump into the tactics. First up, let's start things off at tactic number 1, One of Us. Yeah, we can actually turn things into artifacts with other ways, like, local metal coating. We pay 2 to get this in play, and it can save us so much mana throughout the game. Again, Memnarch's ability is pay 1 blue to turn anything into an artifact. This just has tap, target permanent becomes an artifact, it's other types until end of turn. So you pay the 2 mana right now, and this basically is tap, add 3 mana, essentially in a way for you, because again, it saves you on having to pay to turn something into an artifact. So every single turn, we basically get a free activation of our commander's ability, essentially with this, which can be absolutely incredible. Speaking of which, we have a mana rock that can help us out too. It's artifact 4/2, it can tap for a coast, so it's a great early, low to the ground mana rock, but also tap target non-land permanent becomes an artifact for other types of turn. So again, Memnarch, it also has liquid metal coating, can steal lands for us, essentially. This one doesn't help us with stealing lands. That being said, most of the time, we're going to be stealing our opponent's other things. That being said, there are going to be times when we're like, oh, we already stole other things? I guess we'll steal the lands now, too. Mirror Land Shaper, a 1/1 mirror that costs 3 mana. Not very efficient when it comes to how large it is, but with its ability, that is quite large for us. Tap, target land becomes an artifact to other types until end of turn. So this one, exact opposite of Liquid Metal. Torque, essentially, yeah, start gaining control of your opponent's lands by being like, oh, okay, I tap this. That's an artifact. Pay 4 with Memnarch. Now I get that land. Thank you. Next up, Thran Forge, an artifact for 3 mana. Pay 2 until end of turn. Target non-artifact creature gets +1/+0 and is an artifact creature. That is a permanent effect. It says, hey, you are going to be an artifact creature. And then we say, oh, now we get to steal you. So this is basically kind of like a discount of at least 1 mana. I mean, 1 mana essentially, right? When it comes to utilizing this ability for 2 generic instead of 1 blue. On creatures, we are saving 1 mana overall by just saying, now you are going to be mine. Now you are going to be mine. Now you are going to be mine. Thank you. But when it comes to saving mana, let's jump into attack number 2, the Golden Pig. We're going to be talking about the number 1 card, in my opinion, in this deck, and that is Memnarch Transmuter, a 2/2 human wizard for 3 mana in total. Pay a single blue mana, target creature becomes an artifact in addition to other types of turn. Can also actually turn target artifacts into blue creatures that aren't artifacts, which I guess can be helpful when it comes to like being defensive. Like if someone's like, I destroy target artifact with your commander, ha ha ha, and we're like, pay a blue mana. It's no longer an artifact. No! So with that, yes, that can come in handy. Otherwise, though, this is, again, basically save 2 mana, 1 in a blue, on our commander's ability when it comes to creatures. Because instead, we can just utilize this ability again and again and again to turn our opponent's creatures into artifacts to make them much easier to steal. So again, overall, if we are utilizing both of our commander's abilities, that's 7 mana in total. This makes it so it's just 5 mana when it comes to stealing an opponent's creature, and that can be huge. So again, an amazing card that saves us so much mana throughout the game. Memnarch Transmuter, definitely worthy of the title of Golden Pig in my opinion. But now let's move on to tactic number 3. Speaking of saving mana, less is more. First up, Ethereum Sculptor, 1/2 Vidalcan Artificer. Artifact spells you cast cost 1 less to cast. A lot of the spells in this deck are going to be artifacts. You'll see here in a little bit just how crazy we go with that. And be able to save mana, that can be huge throughout the game because, yeah, we can play a lot more on our turn and utilize more of our mana for our commander's abilities. Next up, Foundry Inspector. Again, artifact spells you cast cost 1 less to cast. Already talked about why that's good. But also, one more time, Joyous Familiar. Historic spells you cast cost 1 less to cast. So this helps us with anything that is, well, a legendary, which I guess can come in handy. Sagas, no. Artifacts, that's what we care about right there. Again, being able to reduce the cost of artifacts can be absolutely huge to save us a ton of mana throughout the game. Next up, though, let's go into tactic number 4, 1 for the money. And of course, first up, there's Wayfarer's Bauble. Pay 2 tap, sacrifice, get a base land in a play tapped. A great way to start off our ramp package. Next up, Arcane Signet. Cost 2, taps for 1. That is what we care about. We care about low the ground, efficient mana rocks. We've got a ton of them in play. Cold Steel Heart. Enters battlefield, we're going to choose, well, blue. Then enters battlefield tapped. It can tap for a blue. Next up, Velwire Stone. It can usually tap for a blue, but if not, that's fine. Again, it is efficient. It taps for 1 mana. Any land opponent controls could produce. Fractured Power Stone. Enters battlefield untapped, taps for a colorless. Guardian Isle enters battlefield tapped, taps for a colorless. We can also turn to a 2/2. Mind Stone taps for a colorless. We can pay 1 to tap and sacrifice to draw a card. Obelisk enters battlefield tapped, can tap for a colorless as well. Planner Atlas enters battlefield tapped. Enters the battlefield, look at the top 4 cards of your library. If you do, reveal up to 1 land. If you want to land on top of your library, basically, go for it. If not, don't. Taps for a colorless, though. Prismatic Lands can tap for a colorless, or we can filter our mana with it. Sky Diamond enters battlefield tapped, can tap for a blue. Star Compass, if we have an island, which we will, enters battlefield tapped and taps for a blue as well. Iron Crag can tap for colorless, and we can also turn it into a equipment, essentially. Probably aren't going to be doing that, but you never know. Anyways, Thought Vessel, you have some hand size, taps for a colorless as well. Midnight Clock. Not as efficient, cost 3, taps for a single blue mana, but we can get midnight counters on it. We get counters on it, essentially. Hour counters, there we go. Once we get the 12th hour counter on it, again, either for free with each upkeep, or essentially, again, when we pay mana into it, we get to essentially wheel. Next up, Sonic Screwdriver, a great mana rock for us. Only taps for 1 mana of any color for 3 mana, but we can pay 1 into it to 1 tap another target artifact, and yeah, there are going to be times we have artifacts out there that can tap for a ton of mana, so that can be huge. We can also scry 1 with it, make a creature unblockable, which can also be very good too. A very versatile mana rock for us. But also want to do tactic number 5, 2 for the show, because these mana rocks can tap for even more. First up, the Enigma Jewel. Only costs 1, comes into play tapped, but can tap for 2, only to activate abilities. Guess what? Our commander has some abilities we want to activate. That being said, we can craft with 4 or more non-lands with activated abilities. We got a lot of those that we could potentially do it with. And then also, it has each activated ability exile card you craft it with. You can activate each of those abilities once each turn. Whenever you activate an ability that isn't a mana ability, copy, choose target for the copy. This can come in handy, but more often than not, just going to be utilizing that front side. Next up, Coalition Relic. This can actually store mana for us. It can either tap for 1 mana, or basically tap with a charge counter on it, store it for next turn to basically add 2. Ornarworn Shaku can tap for a colorless. We can tap and untap legendary permanent we control, like our commander, to untap it, to tap it again. Skyclave Relic. If we kick it, we get 3 of it, essentially, and they all tap for 1 mana of any color, and they're all indestructible. Victory Chimes. This one is huge for this stack. Enters the battlefield. It untaps during each of the players' untapped step. This one does enter the battlefield untap, which is great. But being able to tap and give ourselves a colorless each and every single turn, that can be huge. Basically, 4 mana with each trip around the table when we're utilizing our commander's abilities. Warden Power Stone enters battlefield tapped, can tap for 2. Firemind Vessel absolutely does the exact same thing, essentially, except for it's 1 mana different colors, which is completely fine. And then we've got Hedron Archive, can tap for 2, pay 2 tap, sacrifice, draw 2 cards if we need that. Ichor Elixir, ignore the Planner Die thing, we don't care about that. This can just tap for 2, it costs 4. Sisei's Ring, exact same thing. Urgrim's Eye, exact same thing. Again, all very efficient, all very effective. Stone Speaker Crystal, again, exact same thing. Plus also some Graveyard Hate. Pay 2 tap, sacrifice. Get rid of any player's graveyard, essentially. It also draw a card. That can be absolutely huge. Speaking of huge, Dreamstone Hedron. Cost 6. Taps for 3, though. Pay 3, tap, sacrifice it. Draw 3 cards if we need to do that. Now, you might think we're done with mana rocks, but tactic number 6, flexibility. We've got ways to, well, get even more mana out of our rocks, like Astral Cornucopia. Costs 3x, essentially. Enters the battlefield. X charge counters on it. Tap Choose a color, add 1 mana of that color for each charge counter on it. Again, at a certain point, we're going to have an absurd amount of mana, right? We can just dump all of that into this and then have this tap for an absurd amount. Also, those untap effects we talked about earlier can really help with something like this. Everflowing Chalice, even better potentially for this commander. Lower to the ground, cost 0, multi-kicker 2. So basically, for every 2 mana we put into this, we get 1 mana back with a charge counter, essentially. Tap for 1 of that charge count, 1 for each of the charge counters on it. So basically, you pay 2, taps for 1, pay 4, taps for 2, etc., etc. We can get this up to an absurd amount, and it can tap for a ton for us. But now, so we're going to do tactic number 7, power it up, because we also have other kind of like adjacent mana rocks that we can utilize, which, yeah, basically really help us out with our commander's abilities. Splitting the Power Stone. This kind of gives it away. Power Stones, they're great. Sorcery for a 3-mana. Additional cost, cast spell, sacrifice an artifact. We got plenty of options to sacrifice. Create 2-tap Power Stone tokens. If the sacrifice artifact was legendary, draw a card. Yeah, being able to make Power Stones can be great. Power Stones, again, as a reminder, are artifacts with tap, add colors. This mana can't be spent to cast a non-artifact spell, so they can help us get artifacts out, which is great. Or, again, activate abilities, especially of our commander. Stern Lesson, instant for 3 mana, draw 2, discard a card, create a tap, Power Stone token. Thran Spider, a 2/4 reach, costing 3 mana, enters the battlefield. You and target opponent each create a tap Power Stone token. So make a deal with the opponent and be like, hey, look, I'm being nice to you. Utilize this. Like, I don't need it. Here, take it anyways. You're welcome. Pay 7. Look at the top 4 cards of your library. You may reveal an artifact card from among them, put in your hand. The rest of the bottom of your library in random order. Once you've stolen all the opponent's things that you want to steal, you can actually dump mana on this if you really want to do that. There's a Power Stone Prodigy, a 1/3 Human Artificer for 3 mana. Vigilance, pay 1, tap, loot, draw, discard. Whenever you discard 1 or more artifact cards, create a tap, Power Stone token, triggers only once each turn. Yeah, you get a lot of value out of this throughout the game. Next up, Slagstone Refinery. Speaking of value, artifact for 4. Whenever it another non-token artifact you control from the grave from the battlefield or put an exile from the battlefield, create tap, Power Stone token. So if any of your things are dealt with, again, because you are making things into artifacts, you can make anything into artifact. Yeah, you can just get Power Stone tokens in replacement, which can be huge for you. Urza's Command, very flexible. Choose 2. Creatures you don't control, get -2/-0 until end of turn. Create a tap Power Stone token. Create a tap 0 cost construct artifact creature. With this creature gets 1/++1 for each artifact you control, which again can be absolutely massive, absolutely huge. Or scry 1, then draw a card. Finally, Geology Enthusiast. My goodness. 2/5 Human Artificer for 5 mana. Beginning of your end step, create tap Power Stone token. Free ramp for you basically every single turn. Pay 6, draw a card, and put a counter on this. Yeah, if you need to utilize that, you definitely can with your vast amounts of mana. Next up, though, let's go into tactic number 8, Dig Down, and dig down we shall with a massive draw spell like Pull from Tomorrow. My goodness. Draw X cards, discard a card. Again, we talked about the incredible amount of ramp we have. If you need to draw cards, you can draw like half your deck with this at a certain point, probably. Next up, Divider's Port, and speaking of which, another X draw spell. Roll a d20, add the number of cards in your hand. 1 through 14, draw X cards. Scry X, draw X if you get a 15+. Stroke of Genius, again, another giant X draw spell. Target player draws X cards. So technically, this could be a win condition for you, too. If you're like, I've got enough mana to just make that player draw their deck. Do it. Next up, Universal Surveillance. This one we can have our artifacts help us out, which again, we have a ton of them. Improvise, tap your artifacts for mana essentially for this. Draw X cards. One with the machine. Take advantage of your commander having a high cost again at 7. Draw cards equal to the highest mana value among artifacts you control. Yeah, or if you stole something that was even bigger, that's now an artifact. Congratulations, that. Padim Council of Innovation, 1/4, artifacts you control of hexproof. Again, this is going to protect our entire team essentially again because we're turning things into artifacts too. Give your upkeep. If you control the artifact with the highest mana value, you're tied, draw a card. Even just our commander in play, we're going to meet that requirement most of the time. Transcendent Message, we can actually invoke this out so our creatures can help, so that's great. And X, blue, draw X cards. We can draw a ton with that. Also, again, use basics. Islands are amazing. Instant for 4 and a blue. Draw a card for each island you control. Discard 2 cards. Draw an absurd amount of cards with this in the game. Future Sight. Play off the top of your library. Yeah, you have to reveal it. That's fine, though. But yeah, play off the top of your library. It's basically a second hand for you. Dig down into that. Get more and more mana rocks in play. Do more and more crazy things. Have fun with that. Rush of Knowledge. Kind of like one with the machine. Draw cards equal to the highest converted mana cost among permanents you control. You know, usually it's going to be 7 with our commander, but it can be even more. But now let's go into tactic number 9, Value Town, Unwind. Yeah, counter target non-creature spell. Oh, and by the way, untap into 3 lands. So we don't waste any of our mana. We get that mana back, essentially, and say, you know what? Let's utilize that for our commander's abilities. Same thing with Rewind. This can counter any spell, though, for 4 mana, untap up to 4 lands. Thieving Magpie, a really, really spicy card when it comes to this kind of a build, because Well, I mean, Memnarch is kind of like a thieving magpie, right? There you go. So Thieving Magpie is a 1/3 bird with fly that costs 4, deals combination opponent, draw a card. So yeah, insult to injury with this kind of a card. Aether Gale, sorcery for 5 mana, returns 6 target non-land permanents back to their owner's hands. Stop your opponents in their tracks for the things that you don't want to steal. Workshop Elders, a 4/4 human artificer for 7 mana, artifact creatures you control flying. Our entire team has flying, that's huge. On top of the beginning of combat on your turn, you may have target non-creature artifact you control become a 0/0 artifact. If you do, put 4 counters on it. We can actually turn, even our mana rocks into threats as well with this. Commit to Memory, a good counterspell in a way with this. Target spell non-land permanent into a source library, second from the top. Memory, then we can say, hey, you know what, everyone, let's time warp. Or not time warp, let's time twister. Everyone's going to shuffle their graveyard and their hand back to the library, draw 7, so it's a great restart if we need it. Finally, though, tactic number 10, Great Land, where I talk about a great land. Taps for colors, we can also filter our mana into it if we need to, or pay 4 and tap, make a tap Power Stone token. So again, some potential ramp in a way from this kind of a card to cast our artifacts, or again, to utilize our commander's abilities. But now as this episode is coming to a close, it's time for me to hear from you. So in the comments below, let me know your thoughts are on it. What do you think of this build around Memnarch? What do you think about this Thieving Magpie type build? Steal all the things, make all the mana, do it all. If you're interested in this commander, interested in this deck, make sure you check out that deck list link in the description below. And of course, as always, thanks again and have a good one. This show and episodes like this one are possible thanks to viewers like you. If you're looking for an easy way to help support this show, make sure that you like, share, and subscribe. Also, hit that bell notification icon so you don't miss any new episodes. You can also go check out our playmats and other merchandise at thecommandersquarters.com. We also have a ton of brand new t-shirt designs in stock, so make sure you check out those as well. Another easy way to support this show is with our TCG Player affiliate links. So whether you're buying a deck or individual cards, you can use this general link right here or one in the description. And the final way that you can support this show is by supporting us directly by becoming a patron. There are many benefits to being a patron, and I truly couldn't do this without all of their support.